indictment?
No, I'm not going to talk about Trump's indictment.
This is Bloomberg Markets. I'm John Ehrlichman with Alex Steele. Though President Biden will not comment on former President Trump's indictment, our next guest does have a few thoughts. Bloomberg Opinion senior executive editor Tim O'Brien writes that the former president has challenged our political, academic, and civil institutions, and now it's the justice system's turn. O'Brien has been reporting on Trump for decades. He's also author of Trump Nation, The Art of Being the Donald, and he joins us now. Tim, it's nice to have you with us. We were talking before the break about some of these key questions remaining on what specific charges the former president will be facing. What's the number one thing you'll be watching for in the indictment?
Well, I think what we don't know is what I'm looking for. You know, there's been reporting that there's more than 30 counts in this indictment that would suggest that it goes well beyond the charges that we've all assumed are already in there pertaining to falsification of business records and campaign finance violations, which frankly, up to this point to me, has felt like pretty weak tea from a prosecutorial standpoint. Undoubtedly, there's going to be meat around those issues in the indictment, but to the extent that Bragg has gone well beyond that and assembled more pieces of evidence and a deeper fact pattern than we already know, that's only going to be answered by the indictment getting unsealed. And until we see that, I think it's a bit of a guessing game.
Hey, Tim, I'm curious to then get your take on what we will learn the most, either by fellow Republicans, by his supporters, by how Democrats handle it, how other areas of the law handle it. Like, what's going to be a bigger takeaway that we can extrapolate here?
Well, I mean, I think the entire Trump era has been an attack on civic norms and on institutions and on our faith and expertise and our trust in one another. So to me, the biggest takeaway is how we as average American citizens respond to all of this. These institutions are flawed. They move along creakily at times. But I think by and large, they are there to ensure the broad parameters of a civic society. And that has been under assault, I think, obviously since January 6th, and it continues, I think, in a lot of the calls for violence that Trump invokes. I don't think he's going to pay a political consequence for that. He has a very deep hold on about 30% of the Republican electorate. That is going to make him a force to be reckoned with in primary season. The problem with that is he's not a national candidate. I think moderate and independent voters have long learned they don't have much of a taste for Trump. So the party has to figure out how it gets traction in a general election while it's saddled with him in a primary, or at least his force informs other candidates during the primary. Legally, he's in a tar pit. Donald Trump is going to be tied up in lawsuits for years, most likely. And this is the least of his worries, the Manhattan DA's case. There are two substantial investigations inside the Justice Department that could wind up preventing him from running for office again. I don't think the other cases will.
Now, digging a little deeper to the issue of actually proving a committed felony, because, Tim, this is something you've explored in past pieces as well. Can you just walk us through how that works, what you'll be watching for?
Well, you know, the standard in a criminal case is very high. You have to prove intent. You have to prove that the defendant actively knew that he or she was committing a crime, ignored the law, and committed the crime anyway. That's not the standard in a civil suit. Donald Trump has a robust civil investigation facing him with the New York State Attorney General that may end up with a big fine that could put him out of business permanently in the state of New York, but it won't land him in jail. A criminal charge potentially can land him in jail. But because that outcome is so severe, the burden of proof is higher. And so Bragg and his prosecutors are going to have bulletproof evidence that Trump was an architect of bookkeeping fraud at the Trump Organization, that he knew it was wrong and that he did it anyway. And that evidence of that is irrefutable in the mind of a jury. Now, that's why Bragg put this through a grand jury to begin with. He has already road tested this. So it's unlikely he would come to court, at least on the charges we know he's bringing, without having a high belief that the evidence he has right now is sound.
Before I let you go, Tim, I'm wondering how you look at this opening the door for more action against Hunter Biden, kind of retaliation there.
I mean, I have absolutely no idea. I think that, Jared Kushner occupied the White House with massive financial conflicts of interest well beyond Hunter Biden's, and has continued to sort of use his White House connections to get investors into his funds, and no one's touched that. That will probably come into play if Hunter Biden comes into play, and you end up with this, I think, relentless attack on the children of prominent politicians. I think that's just par for the course now.